Next step is that we are going to glue the fuselage sides together. There is a right side and a left side. The right side has a servo cutout on this part, and the left side has the hatch cutout here and an optional cutout on this side. So you make sure that you put the left side like this and the right side like this. This should not be kept like this, otherwise you will have two sides in the same direction. Left side like this, right side like this. This step will include gluing the doublers. This is the servo doubler which will be glued here. The side doublers, the right side has a hole here. So right side will go on this side and left side goes here. This should not go opposite. The cutouts are different. When you are gluing these doublers, align each of the notches very carefully so they do not overlap on anything, so that later on fitting would be easy. Take your time, align everything, adjust everything, and then glue in place. So we are going to glue the doublers together. Just put in a few drops of glue and later on more can be flown in through the notches. So now the right side is glued. Now we'll glue the servo doubler. Now the left side doubler. So the fuse doublers are now glued, and our next step would be to hinge the stabilizer and the rudder part here. So we'll follow the hinging technique as described in the manual, and let's move on to hinge these surfaces. So now we are going to install the formers. We have the left fuselage, the right fuselage side here. The formers that are going to be installed is the former A, former B, former C, former D, and former E. This has to be aligned so that the big box here is on the bottom side. This has to be so that this notch is at the bottom, this is at the top. This is so that this hole is towards the bottom and not towards like this. and this can be put in any direction. So the first part we are going to do is that we will put all of these on the right side into these notches, and we will use a set square to make sure these are all aligned to 90 degrees. So we will use a set square like this to make sure this is 90 degree each of them, and then we'll while we are holding this, we'll just glue a few drops on this side and it will wick inside and glue. We are not going to put glue on this side and then going to install it. We'll just put this like this and just put a drop of glue here, and while holding it at 90 degrees. So now we'll glue these. So the former A will not be glued at this stage. This will be glued later on. Before adding glue, just make sure the whole part is fitting properly. Use the set square to ensure it is 90 degree. Okay, we move on to the second doubler. Second former, sorry. Use the 90 set square to ensure it is at 90 degrees, which it is, and we'll glue the former C now, former D now. And the last former, which is former E. This can be glued any side. There's a short side and a long side. The long side goes inside this. So this is mounted like this and not like this. Long side goes on the fuselage. Okay, after the formers, we are going to install the wing mounting plate, which is here, and this has a cutout here for installing for connecting the aileron servos. So this is aligned so that this goes towards the back. This goes towards the back here. This is not installed like this. So we are going to carefully put in this plate here. It aligns on all the notches on all sides, and a box structure is made here, and we'll wick a few drops of glue through the sides. So hold it in place and just add a very thin bead of glue on all the joining surfaces on this side, and this is now glued. So now we have the right side of the fuselage with all the formers and the wing mounting plate glued. Next step would be to install the left side over the right side. For the left side will now be put onto the right side, and each of the notches will be aligned carefully. Take time to ensure each notch fits properly. Okay, so after each of the notches are snugly fit, inspect everything carefully, and then glue in a few drops of CA over each of these joints. So hold it in place and glue a drop of CA over each joint. Just one drop is usually enough, because the CA flows through the plastic of Coro and goes inside the joint. When fitting together Coro parts, be sure that the parts actually go through the holes and they are not crushed and folded back inside. So they have to go inside the hole and push on the other side, push out from the other side. So we have the left and the right side glued together. On the wing mounting, so we have now assembled the left side over the right side of the fuselage, and we have just added a few drops of CA over the wing joint, wing mounting plate, and each of the formers are now in place for the left and the right fuselage sides. Our next step would be to put in the battery strap here. So we'll get the battery strap and then continue in a minute. We are now going to put in the battery strap through the battery tray. It's a good idea to install it now so that later on there will not be any problems threading this. So we'll just stick it in place, and the battery tray goes in so that this notch is towards the rear former, and this is installed in place. The notches go inside the fuselage. So make sure that the Coro actually goes through these notches and it is not folded or crushed back in. Take time to make sure the full Coro goes in. The battery tray adds a lot of strength to the front section of the airframe, and it is a critical component to be used. And next, after we install the battery tray and before we glue the battery tray, we have to install the former A1 with the hole on the left side. So this will be glued like this. So install everything in place without adding any glue, and once you are sure that everything goes and fits in properly, nothing is crushed, then we will just flow a few drops of CA through these joints. Make double sure that everything fits properly. Nothing should be crushed. Coro should not be crushed. So after you inspect everything, yes, and we will add a few drops of CA to each mating surface. Just flow a few drops and it will go through the entire joint. Yeah. Not a lot is needed. Towards this joint and on the former on this side. When working with CA, be sure to work in a well ventilated space, because CA has fumes which can cause irritation. So okay, now we have the front former A installed. Let's move on to the next step and we'll see what has to be done. So now we are going to put in the fuselage bottom here. The fuselage bottom will be installed in such a way that this doubler goes inside the fuselage. This doubler, which we installed earlier in our build, they should not go like this. This will go inside. So carefully align each notch together. Everything has been designed very accurately, so it will fit in place Just it takes some patience sometimes, and some time to make sure everything goes in together and nothing should be crushed. So the formers have notches which fit into the thing, and this will like make the whole structure super strong. Okay. And after we are sure everything fits in, we are going to then flow in a few drops of CA. The fuselage actually tapers towards the bottom, so it's a good idea to start gluing from the center side and slowly glue here towards the back and folding this in place. Also make sure you are working on a straight flat surface so that you do not like twist the whole structure. Let's start gluing from this side. A few drops again is usually sufficient. So our fuselage bottom is now glued securely in place, and everything looks very strong and straight right now at this point. And the next step will be that we will hinge the battery hatch here and install in place. This will be hinged here. No, we can hinge by cutting out this part here, like we did hinge the elevator and rudder. And we'll do that here and add some tape. Just cut just the upper surface at the point where the doubler is there. And we will add the packing tape to reinforce the joint. Reinforce the joint with packing tape. You will notice that the former A here is slightly pointed towards the down. This is the down thrust necessary to achieve a stable flight, and the former is also moved a little 1 degree towards the right, which is the right thrust given here. Now we are putting some packing tape to the hinge joint on the battery hatch. And we have it now hinged. Very strong hinge has been created. So we will now install here. We will cut the tape which has gone over the notch very carefully, not to damage the notch. And glue, when we'll glue this, be very sure to glue just the top part. We are not going to glue these notches here. This hatch is meant to like open and close here. So this will not be glued. Just the top part here will be glued. So apply some glue here and then we'll move forward. Just the top part, be very careful when gluing here. And the doubler should go in on the inside of the fuselage. Just 1 or 2 drops is usually enough. And we will flow a drop of glue on this side, so the hatch is securely glued to the first former here. So now we have the hatch installed. It can be opened and closed. We will now put the windshield here. Windshield goes on these notches. Apply gently and flow in the CA. So the hatch is meant to, once the windshield is glued, the hatch will lock into the windshield. Just a drop of CA, and be sure the coro is not crushed. And on the top also put in the glue. Okay, so now this is set here. Let the glue dry. The hatch will lock in here at this point. This will go and lock inside. So now our next step would be to glue the ply motor mount here. It fits in snugly. So just add some CA and glue in place. See, the hole should align, the big hole should align with the big hole on the fuselage. Right, just put it, install it. We'll be doing a correction here on this model, and we will include this in the manual to be done earlier on during the build. So there was a notch here, on the battery bay, on the battery hatch, which we are going to cut off, so flush with the doubler, so this can fit in easily here. So at this point our fuselage base is nearly complete. Our motor mount is installed. Now the last step is to glue the fuselage top. The fuselage top has to be installed in a way that this the servo hatch is on the right side. So the servo cutout is on the left side. So what we are going to do is that we have to glue the doubler on the inside. So we are going to put it like this and glue in the doubler here. So let's glue the doubler, and then we'll move on to install the fuselage top. Okay, so the fuselage, the servo doubler has been installed, and we are now going to install the fuse top over all of the notches. Carefully align everything so everything fits in. Double check everything so that nothing is crushed again, and then glue in using a few drops of CA. Again, the notches are all precision cut, and everything is designed to fit together. Nothing should need modifications unless we have said it in the manual or during this build here. Everything will fit in place without requiring any cutouts or modification. Inspect each joint as you add glue so that the fuselage top fits in with all the formers and the fuse sides. Glue should be added very sparingly because the Coro does not absorb the CA, rather the CA flows. So any excess CA usually drops out from the other side or through the Coro flutes, and is usually excess and spoils the finish of the plane. Just a few drops, 1 or 2 drops is usually enough. Seems like we have converted a few sheets of Coro to something that resembles like a plane now. It is very interesting that the Coro material itself is looks like it is very weak, but when it is made in such a way, designed in such a way with formers and in a box structure, then the plane has considerable strength for the weight and material. So the fuse top is now almost done. Our next step would be to install the tail surfaces, tail fins, the rudder and the horizontal stabilizer which we had earlier hinged onto this. So This is now going to be very critical, so take time here and do not rush through these procedures, because these will greatly affect or permanently affect the quality of flying and flight characteristics given by this plane. So I'm going to trial fit everything first, and once we are satisfied and double checked everything, then only we will add glue. So the stabilizer is added into the fuselage with the tape side down. So we will install it like this, and this fits in through the stabilizer and goes down to the other side and goes up. So now we'll first trial fit this. So the way to do this is we are supplying a